So this is our next instalment in the Stress List series, and for this session we are looking at our emotions. So once again, welcome, I'm Deb Thorpe, and we are for this session looking at what emotions are, what they are telling us, how they affect our stress response, and how we can learn to be with our emotions. So it's a big topic today. I've broken it down into little bite-sized chunks. Again, we're looking at about 30 minutes for this training session. And by the end of this, I really want you to be able to understand your emotions. Yeah. It's something that we typically don't talk too much about, especially in our society, in our culture. And developing a really healthy relationship with our emotions is really a big, big game changer when it comes to so many different aspects in our life. So, what are emotions? Well, they are complex, okay? There's still many scientists and researchers now today that will struggle to define exactly what emotions are. However, there's one thing that we do know and can understand about emotions, and that's that we seem to base our lives and our decisions on them. So emotions are huge. Quite often we just base our whole lives and our decisions on how we are feeling in any given moment. So already you can see the importance of understanding emotions and what they mean and what they're telling us. So we don't all experience emotions in the same way. For example, we can have an idea of what anger feels like as an emotion. However, if you were to ask 10 people what anger feels like within them, they would all describe that in a different way. So just to add to the complexity of emotions, we all experience them in a different way. And it all comes back to our first session about how we filter information. So we filter our own emotions through our own experiences, our own words and language, you know, what we believe those emotions should look like. So we have the capacity to experience a whole spectrum of emotions at any one time. For example, the birth of a baby, we can go through, you know, hundreds of different emotions in the space of 60 seconds. So we have this capacity to experience a whole roller coaster of emotions, and quite often it feels like that in any given moment, which again adds to the complexity of them. So they also trigger a part of the brain that causes a physical reaction in the body. So not only do we feel or understand emotion from a psychological brain point of view. Okay, so we express emotion through our behavior and our body language. So when we are feeling a particular way, we generally express that through our behavior and our body language. So if we're feeling sad, then typically our whole body language slumps, we come inwards, we might not want to engage with other people, we won't be smiling. So our emotions, not only are we affected by other people's emotions, but we in turn affect others through our emotions. So emotional intelligence is a phrase that you may very well have heard before. So we have here the feelings wheel. And this is a tool that is used to help people expand out their emotions. Okay, so what you might find is that because of your childhood experience, for example, you are very used to being maybe in this sad section here. Maybe when you were growing up as a child, you weren't allowed to do anger. You know, that was not an acceptable emotion. So very often when we can't express anger, it goes internal and it becomes sadness. So we might be very at ease and very knowledgeable about this whole sad spectrum and have very little experience in the anger spectrum. Now, humans can experience 34,000 distinguishable emotions. So this is huge. This is a snapshot of the emotions that you can experience at any one time. But being able to recognize what you are experiencing can help deal with them in the moment. So if you look at the center of the circle here, these are sort of big overarching umbrellas of emotions. So we've got happy and sad and disgusted and angry, fearful, bad and surprised. So we might go, oh yeah, I'm feeling really sad today. Okay, well, let's explore a bit more about what that sadness actually feels like. Is it that you're feeling lonely or vulnerable or guilty? Okay, yeah, I'm feeling a bit guilty. Okay, so let's dive a bit deeper into that one then. So is it that you're feeling more ashamed or more remorseful? So we can start getting more and more specific with our emotions. And why this is really important, it's very similar to what we came back to in the very first session about stress, that stress is a very big word. It's used to describe a whole heap of sensations in the body. And in order to really help us move beyond stress, we have to get specific. And it's very similar with emotions. And it also encourages us to look at this spectrum of emotions and go, actually, where is it that I would really like to develop some more emotional intelligence? Where is it that I'm not okay with being angry? And what can I do about that? How can I embrace being or expressing that anger a little bit more? Now, it might be that you've got all these preconceived ideas that being angry is going to lead to, some sort of rage and you're not going to be able to control it. So let's work down the anger scale then, and let's start with feeling indignant. That feels quite a safe emotion to be able to express. So this is a really good screenshot actually. Whilst you're watching this, take a photo of it, caption it. It's useful to have this somewhere that you could see every day and just get used to checking in with yourself. So don't place a judgment on those feelings. Just let them arise and get used to naming them in a different way. Okay? So emotions can be our teacher. So they can teach us about ourselves, like the torch lighting up our inner filters. So in the first session, we had the image of the brain and focusing a torchlight in that inner workings, all the subconscious workings of the filters. Emotions can be that torch for us. So they can really help teach us things about ourselves, about how we're thinking, about what we're experiencing. So this is an exercise that's really good to do every day. So use the feelings wheel to narrow down exactly how you are feeling and allow multiple emotions to surface. You have the capacity to feel both angry and sad, to feel both disheartened and excited. Okay, so just allow all of those multiple emotions to surface and write them down. Okay, so get used to acknowledging the emotions that you're going through right now. And then very simply ask them what they are showing you. What do they want you to know? And nobody else really can tell you this information, because for example, when I'm working with a client, I am not their filter. I am still processing the information they're giving me through my own filters. So it's really important that we get used to asking ourselves what that emotion is trying to show us in that moment. So, for example, I know I've gone through it a lot in the last few weeks where I might have read something in the news and it's made me really angry. Okay. So then I can literally go, oh, I've just read that and now I'm feeling really angry. Okay, what's that telling me? What is that anger right now trying to show me? Because anger is a very active emotion. It's generally the thing that stirs us to action. So it might be that I engage with my anger and I go, okay, what are you trying to show me? And it may come back with, okay, well, that's a real injustice that's happening there. That's really unfair. And, you know, according to my values and beliefs, I believe that there's an injustice happening there and that's making me feel angry. So I can go, right, okay, well, what can I do about that? And it may be that it's happening in an area or to somebody that I don't have any control over. It might be that it stimulates me to take action to do some fundraising or reach out to somebody. And so allow your emotion to, rather than just take over or sit there or fester or try and push it down, engage with it and allow it to teach you something. Allow it to speak to you. Okay? So emotions are also our house guests. So for the sake of this exercise, think of yourself as a house. So you exist as a house on your own, with your own foundations. You are your own entity. Now I want you to think of emotions like house guests. Okay? They come and go. Some can outstay their welcome. Some can irritate you. Some can bring gifts. Some can bring company. So you exist in your own right, whether you have, 10,000 emotions within you right now or you have none. You exist as your own entity. You are the house. And your emotions are like house guests. So there's a little animation coming up to demonstrate that for you. Some emotions arrive unexpectedly and provoke us to think. Others arrived and unwanted and make us feel irritated. Others are a welcome relief and we feel happy. Others just don't want to leave and we just want to escape. Others bring with them all their baggage and leave us despairing. And then sometimes they all show up together. And then we have our moments of peace. Okay, so there is a really short animation to really help you to visualize what emotions are, and that they will come and go. Okay, and here's the thing: we have the ability to see emotions for what they are. Okay, so they are there to teach us things. You know, quite often when we've spoken about triggers for stress, we have triggers for emotions that we seemingly don't have control over. So it's all about us acknowledging that whilst we are going to be triggered in the same way that our stress response is going to be triggered, we have the ability to respond in the way that we want to. So emotions help us to deal with every part of ourselves and our life. There's no escaping emotions. And what you'll find with people who try and escape them, so things like drinking, drugs, sex, you know, all of these things are a way to escape our emotions sometimes. And all it does is just kind of bruise them internally. They don't just disappear. So being able to deal with our emotions and understand that we are separate from them is really helpful, because that way, even when we are feeling sad or we're feeling lonely, we can understand that we are not the sadness. That's just an emotion we are experiencing that is a temporary house guest that has the ability to come and go. So rather than seeing emotions as the driver, so the thing that is in control and is going to dictate where we go in life and what we do, we need to see emotions as the sat-nav. So in this section, we're going to talk about emotions as our guidance system. So we are so used to letting our emotions run riot that we base our behaviour, lives and actions on them. So how many times have you in life set yourself a goal and gone, today I am going to blitz the house and I'm going to do a workout and it's going to be amazing. And then maybe you, as soon as you get up in the morning, you maybe sit scrolling through social media, and before you know it, you're feeling very triggered, you're feeling sad, you're feeling very stressed. And so you go, oh, well, I'm feeling sad today, so therefore I'm not going to do those things that I set in place. I'm actually going to lay on the sofa and eat chocolate and binge out on Netflix. So you can see how we are very used to basing our actions and our behaviour on our emotions. Now, given that emotions are fleeting, they're foreverly changing. So it means that rather than like taking the route from A to B in a way that is relatively easy and straightforward, we end up like taking these millions of diversions because we're kind of allowing our emotions to dictate. So we don't realise that we are in the driving seat. Emotions are best used as a sat-nav, helping to guide us in our lives, alerting to times when we've lost our way and helping us to get back on track. Now, our emotions are important. They are an incredible guidance system, and they are one of the first warning systems when it comes to stress. So engaging and learning and exploring your emotions is one of the most beneficial things you can do when it comes to stress, because typically our emotions are one of the first warning systems when we are going off track. So when, I'm sure we've all experienced times in our lives when we've been in the flow and it just feels amazing, it feels easy, and time just seems to disappear as we get engrossed in an activity, and we're feeling good, and you know, we're really enjoying the moment. And then, you know, something happens with one of the kids, or, you know, there's an unexpected something, and immediately that changes our emotional state. And then we might end up going off and doing a project that we didn't really want to do. And so that internal frustration that we might be feeling, or that resentment, is one of the first indicators that we've gone off track somewhere, that we are operating in a way that's not in alignment with who we really are. So rather than getting annoyed that we're feeling resentful and getting snappy and all of these things, let's go back to being curious and going, oh, that's interesting. I was in a really good flow, in a really good place. I've now come and done this. I'm feeling really frustrated, really resentful. What's that about? And it might be that, you know, you can recognize you've gone off track, and it might be a case of going, right, well, I need to deal with this situation with the kids right now. Let's get that sorted, and then I'm going to get back on track. So our emotions are a really good way of kind of guiding us as to what is best for us in our life. But in order to use them as our guidance system, we need to engage with them. We need to know what our emotions are at any one time. And here's the thing, we'd rather ignore them, if we're honest. We typically grow up with many messages about emotions, about what's acceptable, what's not, how we can express them, how we can't, what we believe is a good emotion and what's a bad emotion. And let's face it, there are times when emotions can feel too much, when we can feel totally overwhelmed by the emotions that we're currently experiencing. And we believe that if we dare to let them out or tune into them, we won't be able to cope. Now, I wouldn't be able to tell you the amount of times I've sat in a counselling room with somebody who is so scared of opening that Pandora's box, that Jack in the Box, because they believe that if they let out one trickle of emotion, it will be like a river bursting the dam. It will be so overwhelming that they won't be able to function. And I know that belief can keep people locked away from their emotions for a very long time. So, first things first, I want you to know that's totally normal. Most people at some point in their lives have gone through that very fear that their emotions are so big, or they feel so big, that if they start to engage with them, or they start to express them, or start to let them out, it's going to be too much. Because emotions can be powerful, and it's totally normal to feel scared about that. So I'm here to remind you that your body won't allow you to experience more than you can cope with at any one time. It will have its own regulation system. And you can approach your emotions bit by bit. You get to decide how much of that box you open, how much of that valve you open. You are in the driving seat. So if you are at a stage where your emotions feel totally overwhelming, you don't know where to start, just prise that lid open a tiny bit and let just a little bit out. And remember, you are in the driving seat. You get to decide which house guests come to stay. You get to ask them to leave. They're not permanent fixtures. Okay. It's why in a lot of my work you won't see me talking about happiness very much, because happiness too is an emotion. It's temporary. It comes and it goes. It's why when I talk about where you want to be in life, I talk more deeply about fulfillment, about being in alignment, about knowing the truth of who you are, because everything else is fleeting. If you try and live your whole life in order to feel happy, you're missing out on this whole spectrum of emotions that can be teaching you many, many other amazing lessons in life. And it's about accepting that there is a whole range of emotions, and it's really incredible to allow ourselves to experience the whole spectrum of those, rather than picking and deciding which ones we want to feel. You know, the house guests, they're going to turn up, they're going to rock up. You have a choice about whether you invite them in, whether you let them stay, whether you let them bring all the baggage. You decide. So it's a process. Learning to embrace your emotions is a lifelong process. I haven't encountered many people who were brought up in a way that allowed them a healthy relationship with their emotions. And that's just is how it is. There's no need to now go back and place blame and go, oh, well, I am this way because my parents did this and because I was told this. It's not about that. You're an adult now. You're in the driving seat. You get to decide. So just like stress, our emotions are triggered constantly. So again, just like stress, emotions aren't something we can switch off from. We can pretend that it's never going to affect us. We are constantly triggered emotionally. And filmmakers have literally made this an art. Okay? You're watching a film, the writers, the producers, the actors, they are delivering that film in a way to trigger certain emotional responses from you. So it just in the way that you can watch a film, you might feel really sad and upset whilst you're watching the film ends, you go off and you make a cup of tea and you recognise that the sadness is linked to that film. Life happens in exactly the same way. So allow your emotions to guide you, engage with them, and ask them what they are showing you about yourself. So one of the big learnings I had when it came to emotions was during my diploma course of my counselling. I must have been about 23, 24 at the time. And as part of the course, we had a personal development group every week where we met with 4 or 5 other trainee counsellors on the course, and the whole purpose of that afternoon was to develop ourselves personally. And I think we were about halfway through the first year when my tutor commented on what an amazing smile I had, and it really had this ability to light up the room, and it was really beautiful. And I was like, oh, thank you, that's really amazing to hear. And she then pointed out to me that I also smiled when I spoke about really painful sad events in my life, and I had no clue that I did this. And for me, I had this belief filter that it was not okay to be sad, that I needed to be this strong, happy person all of the time. So even when I was experiencing sadness, or I was talking about something that was really sad and upsetting, my outside was still showing this smile. And so part of the process that I then went through in my own counselling journey was aligning that external expression of sadness with the internal one. It was allowing myself to experience the sadness and be okay that I could still be the positive, smiling Debbie whilst also experiencing sadness. Because sadness is not the sum total of who I am. It is an emotion linked to an experience I was communicating. So that's the learning. We will all have emotions that we are more okay expressing and being with than others. We might be really adept at expressing anger, but not so good at being with fun and happiness. Okay? So, ways to embrace our emotions. Like we've said in that first exercise, use the feelings wheel and get specific. So, one thing that I've started to do as part of my morning routine is to literally take 5 minutes at the start of a day when I've got my cup of tea, I'm sat there with my journal going, what emotions am I going through right now? What is going on for me? What is that trying to tell me? Is it because I'm not looking forward to the day? Is it because there's this ongoing situation? Just allow the emotions to be. Allow them to come and visit. Yeah? Journal, paint, draw every day to engage with your emotions. Find a way that works for you. I enjoy writing. That's a really good way for me to access my emotions and also just be with them. For others, it might be painting, it might be drawing, it might be playing with some Play-Doh. Do what you need to engage with your emotions. Thirdly, go gently. Imagine you're talking to a child. So allow this to be a gentle process. Please take judgment out of it. We're not here in this space, in this time to, like I said, judge our upbringing, judge the people around us, judge ourselves and berate ourselves for our inability to truly feel and express things. Just go gently. Imagine that you are taking a young child on their first journey somewhere, and you are being compassionate and caring within that. So please just extend that love and that compassion to yourself whilst you go through this journey. Use music to stimulate emotions and then explore what they mean. Music is a fantastic tool to allow us to experience emotions. Music can change our state instantly. So I had a client many years ago who really struggled to verbalise and put into words how they were feeling, but music was a big thing for them. And we would spend most of our sessions together listening to a piece of music that he brought in, because whilst listening to the music, he could use that as a way of communicating his current feelings and emotions, because music has the ability, very much like watching a film, to take us into our feelings and emotions, and from that place we can then explore them. So remember that you exist separately from your emotions. So if you do feel like you're getting pulled into an emotion. So particularly our stronger feeling emotions like sadness or anger, we can get pulled into them and we can find it hard to get back out. It's a bit like quicksand. So in that moment, when you feel yourself sinking into them, remember that you are separate from them. And, you know, then imagine using a ladder or a hot air balloon or something that you can then use as a vehicle to lift yourself out of them. Okay, so just then visualize yourself being lifted out of your emotion. Particularly, you can use this one with sadness, with depression. Imagine that you put yourself in a hot air balloon, you rise up out of the depression that's left in the bottom of the hole. You're lifted out and you're separate and you're away from it. So remember that the more you ignore them, the louder they scream. We can't escape emotions in much the same way that we can't escape triggers. So the more that you ignore them, the louder they become, typically. So what might start as, you see this a lot in relationships, what might start as a little tiny annoyance, I don't know, say you've asked your partner to take the rubbish out and it's on day 5 and it's still not happened. That annoyance, if you don't acknowledge it and you don't voice it, builds and builds and builds, and it starts to become anger, and then it might become rage. So then, you know, seemingly out of the blue, you might be having a conversation with your partner and you're just full on angry over something completely different, and it's like, whoa, where did that come from? Well, that's been brewing for a long time, and so emotions will keep on building, very similar to our stress response in our body. It will keep on building. So the sooner we acknowledge them, the sooner we find out what on earth that's about, the more that we can communicate more effectively and stop this kind of explosive event. So in that example, you know, when it gets to day 5 and the rubbish still hasn't been taken out, we can go, actually, yeah, I'm feeling really annoyed, and that's what it's about. So therefore you have the opportunity at that point to then say to your partner, look, I'm feeling really irritated right now, and I'm pretty sure it's to do with the fact that I'd asked if you could take the rubbish out 5 days ago and it's still not happened, and now it's a real disgusting mess in the kitchen. So, you know, is there a reason why that's not been done? Or, you know, you can then have a conversation about it. But at that point that you've acknowledged it and got it out, it enables you to let that go rather than build up. So this is a really interesting one. Our emotions are held in the body. So engaging with our body is a good way to access our emotions. Quite often, we go through life from like here upwards. We are all in the head. We are all about the thoughts, thinking, you know, we don't engage with our body, and our body holds emotion. So think of the common phrases that we use. You know, I feel like I've got the weight of the world on my shoulders. I've got butterflies in my stomach. We physically hold our emotions in our body. So if you're struggling to engage with your emotions, engaging with your body is a good start. There's a guided meditation in the Inner Circle membership that guides you through this process of exploring what's going on in your body and what that's trying to tell you. And after years of working with both the body and the mind, I'm also convinced that there are certain chronic pain and certain chronic conditions that are there because we have such fierce, unresolved emotions within us. If you are carrying around anger or rage from 20 years ago and that's in you, and you have not engaged with it, you've not expressed it, it will be physically eating up your inside. If you have a pain that can't be diagnosed, we experience this a lot with body work. You know, you've been under however many specialists for years, they've been trying to track what this pain is, and they can't find any physical reason as to why you're in that pain. It's likely to be an unresolved emotion. So just like stress, where that is a downwards cycle, unless you address it, emotions are very, very much the same. And, you know, it's why I believe this is a big part of our stress response, and why we need to embrace and understand our emotions for what they are. So, in summary, emotions are our teacher, house guests, and sat nav. Let's start looking at them in that way. One of the most, I should have brought it down for this webinar, is I've got a sadness teddy, which I had after watching the film Inside Out. So if you haven't seen it, do watch it. I think it's a Disney film. And that's a brilliant visual representation of our emotions and how they operate within us. And even now, I have to very actively engage with my emotions and be okay with being sad at times. Still, that's, you know, I'm on nearly 20 years later of that original journey. And so just embrace emotions for them being this incredible teacher. House guests that you absolutely can refuse to let in, or you can let in, have a cup of tea and send away again, and allow them to be your sat nav, so allow them to be your guidance system. They are here to help us if we allow them. So rather than judging them, rather than going, actually at this moment I don't want to feel that, just allow it to show you what it needs to show you, and then it will disappear. Okay, they are designed to be temporary. Know that we are in the driving seat ultimately. This is a really useful principle to come back to, especially when we are exploring our emotions, that we are in the driving seat. Even if it feels overwhelming at any time, we are in control. We are in existence without emotions. Yeah, they can come and go. We are still here. The motorway principle applies here too. So I've spoken about this a lot in this series, that where we have a default response, our default motorway for responding to stress, we have the same for emotions. So maybe we are used to dealing with anger in a not very helpful way. So I think Ant Middleton has spoken about this quite a bit, where he was in a really bad relationship, if you like, with anger. He was like, you know, I think he did end up in prison for assault, and that's not a helpful expression of anger. So therefore you have to find a way of engaging with your emotions that is helpful to you. So it might be that you go, I can't possibly engage with anger, because if I do, my response in the past has always been to fight and vent and get it out, and I just can't do that in life anymore. Well, you know, that's very true, but there's many different ways that you can learn to experience and explore anger. So when I've worked with clients with anger issues, you know, we've gone from punching pillows to venting, to finding exercise as a way of releasing anger. So there are ways that you can learn to explore and be with your emotions that are healthy for you. Yeah, you have a choice to change. So we can begin the journey of working with our emotions today. This is not something we need to wait for. We have the ability to engage with our emotions from right where we are now. All of those tools and techniques that I've given you in this lesson today begins the journey of exploring our emotions. And I just want to finish with one point. We can get stuck in an emotional response, especially if we have unresolved trauma and issues. So, for example, depression is where we have got stuck in some form of sadness and we are struggling to get out of it. It's where it feels like it has totally encompassed us. We can also find it difficult to access certain emotions because we don't have a blueprint for them. So if there is somebody who has experienced abuse or neglect as a child, they are not necessarily going to have a blueprint, a motorway for how to experience love and joy and happiness. They don't even know how to access that within themselves because they've never had the blueprint laid down for that. So if either of those resonates, do reach out for a professional who can help guide you through that journey. What a professional can do, so what I do with my clients is we can create a safe container for the expression of that. So where something feels totally overwhelming for you, I can create that safe container, which means I've got this and I can pull you out if it gets too much. Okay, so, you know, I wanted to finish with this because not everybody is going to be able to engage with their emotions in a healthy way if there has been unresolved trauma and issues in the past. And so I didn't want to leave it that if you've got to the end of this session and you think, oh my God, I actually can't engage with joy, I don't even know what that looks like for me, where you feel like there's something wrong with you if you can't do that. That's not the case at all. It just means you don't have the blueprint available to you at this moment in time for you to access that. But we can do that. It's just going to take you working with somebody else in order to access that. Does that make sense? So, big subject. I'm aware I've gone on way beyond the 30 minutes. But hopefully that has given you an alternative view of emotions. You can now understand that they are a separate entity to you and they can be incredibly useful for guiding you in your life and being one of the first triggers, if you like, of telling you that you're in a stressful state. So find a way of engaging with them that works for you and let me know how you get on.